What's up? So, I wanted to play with some thoughts. I have been playing with some ideas that are kind of foreign to me. Foreign, certainly within Utah. Those ideas are revolving around ideas of God, divinity. I'm a secularist by, I guess, training. I guess I was raised that way. I was never raised in the Mormon culture. It made it very difficult for me as a kid. I certainly got picked on because of it. I had to defend myself and nearly got in violent altercations every day of my high school, screamed at every day of my high school. One of those weird goth kids with long hair, leather jacket. More of a metalhead, but I mean, what does a normie know? And eventually joined the army as a very angry teenager with a large chip on my shoulder. So, of course, a totalitarian environment would be a wonderful place to get some self development. And after that, went to Indiana for 7 years, and then came back to Utah in 2010. And I still had an enormous chip, and I probably made it bigger. And recently, the pandemic has caused, probably along with many of you, a radical transformation of my life. And I have undergone stresses I have never wished upon anyone. And it's forced me to become a stronger person because of it. And the only way I found strength to become psychologically stronger, well, I guess two things. Let me couch that. So probably ketamine therapy had a lot to do with it. But recently, I've noticed that as I've been chasing this, what does it mean to have a greatest good, right? Well, what is the greatest good of which I can conceive? Ever since I started doing that actively in August, I actually started having flashbacks of my ketamine trips, and things actually start falling into place. Like, that's what I saw. That's the connection. So I always saw how I was connected, but I misunderstood. Under my ketamine therapy, I really saw the connection that I had, but I never realized that it was within the social fabric that I was seeing. I always thought it was within my own nervous system. I try to cerebrally, think that it was some mapping out of my nerves. Maybe it was in some way, and maybe that's a great construct to think of our social fabric. But I have found that actively pursuing the idea, the principle, what is the greatest good of which I can conceive, while also being around people who normally I would give an incredibly snarky response to, who say any approximation of, I know Joseph Smith is a one true prophet. I know Monson is the true prophet right now, current prophet. I know in my heart that the Book of Mormon is the one true word of wisdom. And as I have been chasing this, I've realized that I don't have to be offended by other people's thoughts. Let that sink in a minute, right? I don't have to be offended by other people's thoughts. Before I had to be offended because I didn't actually have my own thoughts. I was a collection of other people's thoughts. And so anytime somebody brings something up that challenged what I was saying, it wasn't outright accepted. The only way I can double down is not by some sort of logical thought process or thought experiment, but by chewing on a bone and throwing stones at you, right, in a rhetorical way, getting all angry at you. But I found this to be, at least with the ketamine therapy, and I guess I just put that together. I hadn't even thought about the ketamine therapy being all that necessary, but now that I think about it, I think it actually is what allowed me to tap into that divine construct. The specific ketamine therapy that did it was when I was looking in a mirror at myself, of course, in a mirror, right? And I was wanting to find what, if you're familiar with the philosopher Ken Wilber, he talks about the centaur awareness. And the centaur awareness, if you're not familiar with the centaur, is the idea of a horse, half man, half horse, right? So it's a man torso, horse body. And his whole point was, look, if a centaur wants to run faster, he's not going to whip himself or grab a spur and jam it into his groin to run faster. He's just going to run faster. That's just what he's going to do. And so the centaur awareness, man being the brain, the horse being the body, right? You're not supposed to whip yourself into action. You're supposed to inspire yourself. You work together harmoniously, which is also why often bad thoughts, negative thoughts, tons of stress that you can't deal with will often seed itself into knots in your muscles. And being able to work some of those knots out can actually help you work some of those thoughts out. And ketamine, maybe that's a quick transportation. But I also thought about it differently. When I did ketamine therapy, and if any of you watch this and you are interested in it, if there's any advice that I would give you that has led to me feeling better about my situation, no matter how hellish it becomes, is consider that the same distance between 0 to -10 is also the distance between 0 and 10. So yeah, maybe you are a broken person, right? And maybe you are. The path to redemption isn't to go back and fix the past. The past has happened. The path to redemption is to understand the past, to understand what those lessons have for you, to have a self-aware coming to Jesus, right? Not to be too punny moment, and not to shy away from any sort of self-critical focus, to see exactly what it is that you want, what are your actual thoughts, and ironically, I came to this way of thinking by a famous psychologist who I often differ with his what to think, which I find even more fascinating. And so this guy, Jordan Peterson, he started secularizing the Bible, and my brain just started firing. Oh my gosh, I would have loved to see that in an EEG, or an fMRI, right? And so just so cool. And my brain really just started playing with these. Okay, so Cain and Abel isn't about this idea of a physical brother murdering another physical brother. It's about you looking at the existence of where you are, your present moment. And if you're not scrapping, or if you're not making it, maybe it's not your fault. But if you fold your arms and say, well, suck it, the world can suck it and they should take me as I am, you're probably going to live a pretty hellish existence and be pretty miserable, which is Cain. Because ultimately what did he do? He murdered the worthy part of himself that basically said, okay, well, yeah, I work pretty hard. I'm a lion. I protect my flock from lions, right? And so I have a sling. I throw a rock at a lion and murder it. So yeah, I'm pretty hardcore, but I have these scars to show for it, right? This was not an easy path for me. There was great sacrifice. And even though I felt like I should have sacrificed enough, I wasn't succeeding. So I continued to sacrifice. And then that was the worthy sacrifice. And that's the Abel story. And so many things fell into place. He then talked about how the Bible isn't supposed to be taken literally. You were then supposed to look at it as a fable or foible or parable of an oral tradition that's finally able to articulate these stories through written language. And at once I was able to actually, I don't know if lionize was the right word, but I was able to look at the Babylonians with respect and admiration. It's like, oh, so these are fundamental things that I'd struggle with every day. And that made it so much more interesting. So this isn't just a bunch of morons. These were actual people playing with existential ideas, and it made life immediately so much more interesting. And I think that so many people want to reduce life into one, if I disagree with you, say you believe in God and I don't, I then need to be offended and tell you why I'm so smart, how much time I've spent looking into this, and then why you're of course wrong, right? And then back it up with, didn't I tell you how smart I was? Like, Dr. Phil, haven't you read my book? And I just have such a hard time with that because that's who I was. It's a skin, right, that I've kind of slithered out of. And I I hope I don't slither back, right? Certainly I'm human, right? I could default, I could regress. But I have found myself feeling the best about who I am in the most stressful, crazy, chaotic conditions. And I found that who I am is latent code wrapped up, waiting just for the right stresses to come in. And when that package is being read by the system and it's extrapolating, if you then can infuse that with a greater connection to something bigger than you, I think that you'll find that you can make manifest a way of thinking that will lead you to ways that are more self productive, less socially alienating. Even if you don't go out and hang out with people all the time, that's not what I mean. I mean, like, purposely socially alienating, like, we stand for the entire working class. You said a bad word, you're canceled. Bro, I'm working class. Like, what do you mean I'm canceled? You just said you stand for the whole working class. But we stand for the entire working class except for you, and you. And the five of you left, let's organize, and then let's castigate anyone that uses the wrong, the wrong words. And, I have found that it has truly put a desire to find my best self. And, that doesn't mean you have to agree with me, but again, my what I'm thinking is certainly inconsequential. My how I'm thinking, I think, can add value to anyone who sees this, and probably everyone who doesn't. Anyway, this is my message of love coming from Joshua, Yeshua, Michael, Archangel, Cameron, Crooked Nose, right? We know about crooks. That's, a shepherd's crook, right? And so, why not me? Why not? Why can't I be the shepherd to help secularists not belittle and dismiss such an important hierarchy that somebody like Nietzsche, who fully was skeptical of the church, totally understood the importance of a grounding in a higher ideal. And you don't need to believe in God, right? You don't have to believe in some wizard in the sky. And I'm sorry if that offended you that I framed it in that way. But many secularists look at it that way. You can simply look at it as, what is the greatest good of which I can conceive? You know what that is to me? That's the sword of Shannara. And I'm sorry, Terry Brooks, I realize that you say Shannara, but I read it as Shannara. And if you wanted me to say Shannara, then you should have been like, well, what's his name? Robert Jordan, and actually added a glossary to the end of your books there, buddy. Anyway, sword of Shannara, right? Again, a burning away and just revealing the truth. Can you deal with it? Wow, that's weird. I actually manifested that, and it actually added a benefit to me. Well, that's not God of the Bible, Josh. So, God of the Bible are just people playing with ultimate archetypes of greatness. Why can't you do that, right? Rand Thor, right, from the Wheel of Time. Here's a guy who is about to go crazy, and yet he's supposed to save the world, right? And you see him scrap and get after it, right? Maybe that's, and that even in the worst environments, you've got that little seal of holiness, keeping the rotten corruption from sinking in. And you can do it. It's a great way to think. You don't have to think what I think, but I certainly think that you can benefit from how I think. And to that world, may the force be with you.